It just looks a bit spotty, with like half an NFC coil over here, this strange spacing between the various points of interest, and the fact that this camera is very close to being aligned with this one, but it's just a little tiny bit off.
This is the Nothing Phone 3, and yeah, it's ugly. Is this thing ugly? No. David says no, and it looks great.
I say yes.
I think yes, it's ugly.
The long-awaited Nothing Phone 3 is arguably the most controversial phone launched in 2025, with people outraged over its odd design and, most importantly, its price. As for a while before the phone launched, Nothing claimed this was going to be their first true flagship smartphone, only to introduce an almost flagship phone for the price of one. Its chipset, the Snapdragon 8S Gen 4, is nearly identical to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which is last gen's flagship chip, whereas phones at its price point use the latest and greatest Snapdragon 8 Elite. Its display is one you'd find in an upper mid-ranger, not a flagship. Its camera system is not as good as other flagships. In fact, the Nothing Phone 3's telephoto camera is actually smaller than the one in the Nothing Phone 3A Pro, which is cheaper than the Phone 3. And for $800, those specs just don't cut it. Because for that price, you can get the much better Galaxy S25, the Google Pixel 9, or even an iPhone 16. But nothing can always change the price, which they usually do 2 to 3 months after the phone's launch. What they can't change, however, is the phone's design, which seems to split the Nothing community in half when it comes to whether it's good or not. And that's why I'm here. I have made 4 different redesigns for the Nothing Phone 3 to fix the oddly spaced out of alignment camera system, as well as bring back removed beloved features. In my first redesign, I fixed the camera placement by aligning the small telephoto camera with the 2 cameras below it, as well as making it appear the same size by enlarging the lens cover around it, making sure to keep the actual lens the same size. Then, I turned my attention to the brand new glyph matrix, which replaces the traditional glyph lights that made previous Nothing phones stand out. As many people pointed out, it's quite small. So I enlarged it and made it a rectangle, just like this viral redesign by AFox Designs on Twitter. Then I had no idea where to put it, so I made 3 different variations of this design. I prefer the one with the horizontal glyph matrix. But some people, like me, prefer the glyph lights. Something about embracing the limits of the light strips really made Nothing phones stand out to me, whereas just slapping a fancy screen on the back to fix it takes that away. So let's fix that. This was surprisingly difficult, as the Phone 3 wasn't really a good canvas for glyph lights with its segmented design. I wanted to make a new glyph interface while staying true to Nothing's design language, but that would be quite difficult without making something radically different. Especially considering how Nothing hasn't made nearly enough products for me to establish a clear and consistent design language out of them. That being said, I started with the cameras, as I wanted to have the glyph lights wrap around them just like in the Nothing Phone 2, but they were too far apart for me to do that, so I had to rearrange the cameras once again. I looked at my drawings and selected this design as I had a good idea on how to make the glyphs wrap around it. Now I know what you're thinking. It looks like an iPhone. To be honest, I thought it looked more like a Motorola phone, but Taking inspiration from the Phone 2, I added some glyph lights around the cameras, and I think this looks pretty good. Moving on, I spent the next 2 days working on this design in an on and off fashion, and eventually landed on this. As you can see, this is quite a radical difference, but let me walk you through it. At first, I wanted to also have glyph lights wrap around this semicircle here, so I extended it in both directions and eventually realized that that wouldn't work. So I left the circle alone, and decided to clear my mind by adding that bottom charging indicator glyph that was present on both the Phone 1 and Phone 2. Returning to the center of the phone, I began by adding glyph lights similar to the Phone 2. I also turned these 2 design elements on the right and left into glyph lights. And eventually, I just ended up with a Phone 2 with an extra camera. But ideally, the best design would be one that combines the practicality of the glyph matrix with the uniqueness of the glyph lights, so I quickly set out to modify my last design to add my improved glyph matrix to it. I also wrapped the glyph light around it because of course I did. And aside from that, I removed this whole flashlight circle because it wouldn't fit anywhere else, and instead just moved the actual flashlight to be on top of the small telephoto lens. And finally, if Nothing removed the glyph lights, they might as well remove the entire glyph interface, so I made this design that includes neither. And this was my take on the Nothing Phone 3's design. I don't necessarily think the original design is bad, I just thought this was a good way to get free views. Sure, when I first saw the design when it leaked, I thought it was quite weird, but eventually it grew on me and I'm sure that's the case for many others. I just can't care about things for too long. Unlike some people. With that being said, that should be the end of today's video. If you'd like the PNGs or editable PDN files of the redesigns, you can find them in the link in the comments in the description. Feel free to use them however you want. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.